Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Good Girls. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This was a back-to-back episode situation, but like always, I'm watching these one at a time, so I only seen episode 15, so I'm reviewing it, so afterwards I'll pick up episode 16 and review it as well. But for now, let's break down everything with this episode. Once again, kind of understand why Vance is the way he is. I brought it up last episode because it got revealed. It definitely gets even more so. It's not just his wife, it's just his child. I'm assuming that's his stepchild because later on she's like, he's like, Mom, get your husband. So it's like, I'm assuming he's a stepdad. So the stereotype is that stepdads are the most pushed over, like, taking advantage of people, just kind of like, oh yeah, like your child. She's like, oh, you're not even my real dad. You know, that's the stereotypical conversation. His wife doesn't listen to him. Like, oh, I need. Did you get almond milk? Yeah, I got oat. It's better for you. It's like, oh, his coworker, she got him. It's like, wait, this is regular milk. He's like, I need almond milk. What is this? She's like, milk. He's like, I'm lactose intolerant. She's like, stop being such a woman. So it isn't just the women in his life. I mean, it definitely seems like it's specifically women, especially the way he's going after Beth so hard. It just seems like the biggest middle finger possible. So it was like a woman thing, but now it's like he just in general doesn't have any power in his personal life. So he wants to have power over someone else, which obviously comes up the conversation about like why he started this whole cream thing anyway, is so that he can have power over people because he's top dog. Like, you would have never realized like, oh, like his personal life is what it is if you just go by the nature of like how he runs things, because it's like, oh, like Vance is just so like, oh, mean and a little intimidating a tad bit. Like, he's so controlling because he's overcompensating for the fact that he has no control in his own life. So it's just interesting when you break down the psychology of that. But another angle of this episode is Annie. Her and, Kevin's relationship, which is good. It's like, oh, they're having so much fun. They're actually so cute. And it's like, oh, I'm going to pick a different song. He's like, oh, no, that's fine. She's like, but it's Train. He's like, I love Train. And she's like, oh my God, I love this so much that you're into Train too. And then it's like, right, so what are we, boyfriend and girlfriend? And she's like, do we have to really do that? And he immediately is like, yeah, I'm tired. I got to recharge. It's like, it puts a real snafu into things, even to the point that it's like, oh, you made yourself an omelet. What about me? And she's like, oh, I'm on Tinder and stuff like that. I thought he was going to lie when he was like, oh, I'm going to be on Tinder or Hinge or whatever. I thought he was lying. And like when she sees his phone later on, I thought like, oh, it's going to be something else. He was playing you. It's like, oh, no, he legitimately was on those apps. That's a little douchey, but at the same time, it's like, right, you guys aren't necessarily exclusive. I can immediately, without her really getting into it, I can tell like why Annie had that reservation. All her relationships have kind of ended badly, so you don't want to enter, like, because things are good. The moment it becomes like a relationship, that's when she feels like that's when she kind of, not necessarily, probably a little self-sabotage, but also just like that's where things kind of fell apart. Whether it was Greg, her ex, Noah, which I could not remember Noah's name for the life of me. I didn't remember that because I only know that because they brought it up this episode. But obviously FBI dude from season 2, obviously Josh, who's from last season and this season. That is kind of interesting. She's kind of like had like one particular dude per season, but it's like that's also the thing too of like, right, I've had like so many relationships and they've never gone right. I think Greg's the only dude she has like a decent enough relationship with. I mean, he's kind of in her life because they have a kid together, so there's that. But like every other dude's kind of left her life, and just for varying and different reasons. And obviously for the past season and a good chunk of this season as well, she's been working on herself, and so she doesn't want to jeopardize. It's like, right, things are good between us. If I enter a relationship with Kevin, I'm going to ruin things. But she's like, yeah, I don't want to not date you, but I don't want you dating anyone. So he's like, so you don't want to not date me? And she's like, yeah. So do you want to not date someone else? It's like, no. So it's like, right. Oh, he's like, I can work with that. It's like, okay, they're good. So things are kind of nice there, but things get complicated later on when Annie has to use her hoo-ha because they're trying to get close to Bruzin, as they name him, because it's like I called him the fairy godmother last episode. It's gang friends fairy godfather. I misspoke last episode. I thought they said godmother, but they need to get his plans because Dave and because he explained everything that he's up to, like he's gonna like put all this everything into a rec center. It's going to be what he's like laundering and doing, all like laundering the money, doing all the like terrible stuff he's doing. It's all going to be through that rec center. So Dave and Phoebe are like, cool, yeah, we can't do anything. You'd have to get a warrant, but we're not really in a position to do that. So you guys are like, wait, you want, and I love Andy being like, wait, you want us to commit a crime? And he's like, oh, is that making you uncomfortable? I thought Annie was going to like say something smart back, but she didn't. It's just like they all kind of got quiet, and then Phoebe's shooting Beth the dagger. So it's like, fine, you do that, and we're even. And it's just kind of like, right, because Beth was last episode trying to make up to like, right, like I try to make things right between us, get you your job back. It's like, this is how you do it. This is how we make us even all across the board. So they have to steal the files. I love that Annie's trying to like pick the lock and everything. But it's like, right, Beth should use her hoo-ha. And it's like, right, it worked with the wire situation. Didn't actually work with the wire situation considering Rio ended up finding it. But it's like, all right, it's like, why don't you use your hoo-ha? And it's like, fine. And he's like, we'll use my hoo-ha. So she's pretending like she has to pee. And I love that she knows the guard by name. He's like, you got to be kidding me. And she's like, Clark, come on. You're just going to like, yeah, like the second time through, she's calling him by his name. But stealing the files. They picked the lock. Cool. I guess I've never been in that situation where like a key, like a door needed a key card and a like physical lock. I've never seen that before. That was interesting to me. I didn't know doors were made like that. Like it always seemed like one or the other. Either there's like a physical lock or there's a key card. So that's why I was kind of surprised by it. I didn't know you could actually, I mean, it makes sense. You can put whatever you want to like for a door. So like having both isn't impossible. It's not completely out there, but it was just something I'd never seen before. I mean, I guess it worked out in this favor because it made them not be able to just break in there. So they had the key card wasn't on Scott, so like Annie has to go on a date with him. The moment she went on a date with him, I was like, oh, this is going to end badly. Oh, this is going to end so badly. But you can tell immediately he's such a douche that like Annie's just kind of like, yeah. She's like, oh, he's like, what's wrong? She's like, sorry, I'm just, he's like, oh, I'm cold. And he's like, yeah, you should have brought a jacket. I was like, I mean, it's stereotypical, it's cliche, but the go-to move is like, oh, if a girl's chilly, you like put your jacket on her. But nevertheless, and Annie's trying to rush to get the card, the jacket, and the card to, Beth, who's breaking into the office, and immediately as she's running by, I was like, you see a guy in the like alleyway. I'm like, was that Kevin? Don't tell me, or is that going to be one of Kevin's friends? I was like, oh, this is going to end badly. I knew it was, and Kevin sees her, and I'm like, no! And she's like, hey, this is mine. I was like, what are you going to say? I was like, please say boyfriend. Just say boyfriend, because that way you can feel at least a little bit better about it. But she's like, roommate. You're like, oh, it sucks. Because she's super into Kevin. She really does like him a lot. But the fact of the matter is, we've got to do some illegal stuff right now, and I can't let you in on what we're up to, and, you know... And what makes it even sadder, too, I mean, because, you know, Scott was like, yo, I should be going. And he's like, no, she's all yours. And it's like, because she came up the lie of like, oh, this is my boss, and this is our uniform, and yada, 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 like coming up the lies. And he kind of ended up exposing the lies. But it makes it even sadder because Scott's gay. And it's like, oh, dude, it's like, yeah, he's just keeping up that, like, bro front because mainly for his dad. You know, it's like, right, the picture of me with the hat backwards, the cheetah, he's like, oh, yeah, Photoshop that, and just, I did that photo for my dad. Even been like, yeah, sorry about this. She's like, for what? He's like, what I'm about to do. So he takes the picture and he sticks out his tongue like, yeah. So that's why he's been so extra douchey, because he felt like that was like the way to, like, I guess, you know, he's probably never had much experience with women. So he's probably like, oh yeah, like, you know, like girls kind of go for like that douchey thing. I mean, because I guess he's had experience where like I don't know, maybe girls have kind of like responded to that whole like douchey persona that he kind of creates. It's not him, because him and Annie were talking, and I love that, like, just he's like, oh, the doctor dude, yeah, she's like, therapist, literally all her exes, he's like, oh, they're gay, and it's like, oh yeah, like that, you know, someone that's straight and that's really into you, and she's like, let me guess, you. He's like, no, that homeless dude. And so they're like, well, he's not homeless. He's in the process of being without a home. I forgot how she worded it, but it was like, yeah, like, dude's super into you, and he was able to kind of pick it up. So it's like, oh, he's like, this is the best date I've ever been on with a girl, and she's like, well, you make a really good, terrible, like, date, or you do a terrible dude proud in the sense of like pretending to be a terrible dude, you know. And I actually thought it was kind of sweet for a second. I was like, oh, Annie kind of got a good friend out of this. I mean, granted, the friendship and everything's built off a lie. I mean, she opened up to him just because she was kind of in, you know, down mood because of everything with Kevin, obviously. So it's sad to see things kind of played out that way. Another element to this is Ruby trying to mend fences between Stan and Beth, even saying like, oh, we should like, oh, when's the last time we like got drunk and like hung out? Like we should like make it a thing of like, oh, the bowling's together, because Dean comes and confronts Stan about like, you know, and it's like, well, he's like, what was I supposed to do? Ruby was in trouble. And he's like, you could have talked to me. But it's like Stan knew, like, probably like, nah, this is about you going to jail. You would have putting Beth behind bars before looking after my wife. I think that's what he was probably thinking. So they're in a complicated, but even him being like, yo, we've been friends for, I didn't remember that. Like him and Stan have known each other that long. We know that Ruby and Beth have. I mean, to be fair, like Beth and Dean have been like, we're high school sweethearts. So, I mean, when that last season they kind of dived into that, but I don't remember that from any of the previous season, them covering like Dean and Stan's friendship. Like, oh yeah, we've known each other, we've been friends for like 30 years. Like, you guys have? Like, have y'all been like a tight-knit group since then? Like, I'm curious. I guess I wonder where Ruby and Stan high school sweets are. I don't remember them covering that. So, or maybe it could just be that Dean's like known him that long, but like maybe just like it's just kind of like, oh, funny how it worked out, like that you and Ruby got together. Obviously, me and Beth. I don't know. If you do know, if they have brought that up and I'm just not remembering, do correct me. Let me know in the comments down below. I just didn't remember that. So I was like, oh, I didn't know you guys went that far back. I know you guys were somewhat tight, like the few scenes like Stan and Dean have had together, that there was some friendship there. But I thought it was more so like our wives are besties, so we're kind of like good friends, not besties, but good friends by association. But it's like, no, that friendship runs deep apparently. Whatever the case may be. So Ruby's trying to mend the fences between them, even being like, oh, okay, so they ended up stealing a Chili's discount card, get 10% off at Chili's the first time at the office. So when it was all said and done, you know, Ruby's trying to convince Stan. He's like, all right, I'm going to be there. She's like, cool. The Bolins are going to be there too. He's like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? No. Like, all right, cool. So the Bolins will be here. He's just like, what? She's like, she needs both of her worlds on the same page. Even trying to like, what game was it that she was trying to get? She was trying to get Beth and Stan on a team. It's like, what, game night? Well, no, it wasn't just us hanging out. It was supposed to be game night too. No, we've never even played that. Like, no. Trying to find some form of common ground. And then I love that being the scene that like Annie's like, oh, I know what we're doing wrong with like handling my hoo-ha. And then like Sarah's there. She's like, oh, hey, Sarah, aren't you up pretty late? Shouldn't it be your bedtime? She's like, my bedtime's like for 2 more hours. And then like Ruby's like, go to your room. It's like, oh, that's such an awkward thing. And she has to be like, what? Why am I the weird one from busting into your house mentioning my hoo-ha? Like, we all know what I was talking about. It's not my fault that Ruby's daughter was sitting there. Like, how was I supposed to know? But speaking of Beth, Beth ends up, because I thought that was so interesting. She forgot to put the key back in the right place. I mean, I guess it's like, right, you're being rushed. You're trying to make sure you got everything. But it's like, because she's someone that is pretty good about the details. So for her forgetting the key like that and putting it in the wrong drawer, like I said, she was probably just like, she probably didn't think much of it. But ultimately, that was the reason why he got super suspicious. Because, like, the moment, like, Scott's there talking to Nick and Nick's, like, looking for the key, I was like, oh, boy. Eventually, like, he's going to find out about him going on a date with Annie because he has a picture of it. I was like, oh, this is all going to come falling apart. But even before we got that, things start falling apart because there was a knock on Ruby's door. And I was like, oh, who's it going to be? I thought it was going to be Rio. Nah, it's Vance because I forgot, like, he's been tracking Beth's phone since the beginning of the episode. I was like, okay. And I love the whole thing of him getting stuck in there. He's like, he's like, can you unlock the child lock? Which I was like, for one, it's very emasculating to him. I say that more so because he is someone who's so like trying to be alpha or whatever, you know. Like he can't be so in control in the rest of his life, so he needs to be in control in this. So he's acting super tough. But it also made me feel. I found it funny because it reminded me of my childhood to a certain extent. Because I remember one of my dad's vehicles having a child lock on. I mean, I'm not well versed in cars, so I don't know like if like is that like a common enough thing across all vehicles. I'm sure maybe some vehicles have it more than others, but it's just like I remember that always being a thing of like, all right, someone's gonna have to open the door from the other side because like the child lock and everything. It just made me think of my childhood in that regard, because that would be something you have to deal with on a regular basis, the child lock. But now not only Beth, but Ruby knows the truth. So Beth confronts Dean about it. She's like, how could you? And he kind of admits, like, yo, like, you didn't have my back. She's like, if, you know, I went to jail because of you. She's like, not on purpose. And I got you out. Like, you know, if I didn't have your back, you would have been still in jail, you know. And obviously for him, it's like, but these are people who actually have my back. That was the whole thing too. Like for Dean, he made his decision even more so. Like he had reservations recently, but that was how the whole thing was staying ended, where he was like, all right, at the very least, I still have them, because he didn't feel like he had his wife. He now is like, oh, I don't even have my good buddy Stan on my side. Like you've got your own reasons, your own family to look after. So it's like, right, I only got me. At least these guys are looking out for me. To be fair, you caught Vance in a lie last week's episode, so it shouldn't come as no surprise. But then Beth kind of was like, right, these guys, you're thinking, oh, you thought they were like your bros and they had your back. It's like, no, he was just using you to get to me. It's like, once again, it's gotta suck too, because like everything comes back to your wife. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, he wants me in a position, so he wants me to win so that he can take advantage of my position and stuff like that. It's all about being close to me. It's like, she's like, I actually wanted Nevada. Now it's like, now she's probably questioning whether is it really worth it? Like, you've been behind my back trying to take me down, send me to jail. It's like, once again, I've been like, Dean shouldn't have done what he did. But, you know, it's one of the it's much like the Stan thing of like, I don't agree with it because I'm more on Beth's side of things. Whoop-de-doo, no surprise. But at the same time, I still do understand why they're pissed. They have every right to be pissed. I just wish things were a little more copacetic. I wish everyone was on the same page, but it's hard to be on the same page when you have like a prison sentence on the rise, whether it's for Dean or whether it's for Beth or Stan or just Ruby or just literally everyone's going to jail, like potentially, you know, so... And now Ruby's kind of confronting him about, like, don't do this. It's like, she has a family. It's like, we have a family. She has kids. Who you think is sleeping down the hall? And so for Stan, it's a situation of, we've been down a slippery slope for a while. We've been to church. The fact of the matter is, he talks about it just takes a little bit of that corruption to kind of spread. And then Ruby's like, we deserve this. Like, the fact of the matter is, it paid for Sarah's kidney, and it also paid for Teddy to go to that school. We deserved it. And for him, it's like, yeah, you can pretty it up, but it doesn't take away, it doesn't, you know, it's us trying to pretty up and make excuses, but, you know, we're criminals and this is bad stuff, you know? So there's no, you know, it's like, right, don't invite the Bolins over. It's like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. And Dean comes over with the egg salad and everything. It's like, oh yeah, like, this is half of what she made. And then he hugs her and he's like, I'm sorry. You know, it's like, oh, they're good again. It's like, that's what Ruby wanted. She was like, yeah, they'd get drunk and then like there'd be some hugging and everything would be good. Didn't work to the full effect that Ruby wanted it to, but it kind of worked out. But now Dean and Stan have like, right, we're part of a cult. Yeah, they got us good. All right, let's take down a brother. I'm like, yeah. So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. Vance trying to, you know, applying everything to his life, being like, bump that. His once again, I believe his stepson, I could be wrong, could straight up be his kid, but I think it's his stepson, is like, won't listen. All right, I rip your console out the wall, dump it in the trash. I'll take this oat milk that my wife bought me and pour it on top of that. And then she's just standing there like, oh my God, what are you doing? And he's just kind of super casual about it, like going about his day. Obviously, Nick finds out the truth behind everything as Rio laughs in his face like, oh my God, you got played, dude. And then he confronts Beth. And Beth is like, what are you going to do? Like, she's so used to Rio's tactics, which Rio's tactics, they're scary in their own right. Scary in the fact is he's the very like, now I'm gonna put a bullet in your head, I'm gonna handle things my way, scary gangsters tactics. Whereas his brother cousin is more so like a, I'm gonna ruin your life. There's your husband situation. Oh, your sister's got a record, and oh, that friend of yours, can't even pay for her son's school and stuff like that. He's like, I'm gonna have to do this to you, Beth, and it's just kind of has the nerve to have a smile on his face while he does it. And so it's hard to say who's more ruthless. They both suck, but I don't know. I mean, to be fair, it's not like Rio hasn't threatened her family and everyone else already before. I don't know. Because like I think part of her was kind of thinking like he might be the lesser of the two evils. He's just as evil. Like it's not like a lesser than, greater than thing. They're on even ground with their ruthlessness. So obviously you have Phoebe and Dave trying to figure out, okay, how do we tie this all back to Nick? They're not really finding a way. So Rio shows up, knock knock knock. Hey Beth. Oh yeah, I want you to apologize because you hurt my feelings. And he's like, how? It's like, if you ever need anything, all you have to do is ask. And she's like, but he's your brother, cousin, his family. Yeah, and it's like, but he's in our way. So figured it was going to come down to this. I think the best option for Beth, honestly, would be to turn them against each other more so than like, rather than just having Rio go after him. I wonder, is it going to be a situation of you're going to send Rio after him and then you're going to pop Rio or what? I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that ultimately all plays out. Next episode is the season finale. Sadly, the series finale. I'll talk about that more once I've seen the episode. I haven't looked up anything, but I'm going to watch the episode first. I mean, granted, all this isn't going to matter to you because the finale, whatever it is, it's going to, like, my review for that is going to go up, like, maybe 30 minutes after this, so it's not like these are going to be big separations, at least, upload-wise, but we'll see how everything ultimately ends up playing out in the finale, but really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.